Hello and welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're peeling back the layers on a place that's just soaked in mystery. You know, Area 51. It's a name everyone knows. Aliens, conspiracies, top secret stuff. But underneath all that, well, it's a real place. A highly classified U.S. Air Force base. So, our goal today, cut through the noise, try to separate the facts from, well, the fiction. We've got documented history, public info. We're digging into it all. Let's start at the beginning then. What is Area 51, officially speaking?
Well, officially, it's got a few names. You'll hear Homey Airport or Groom Lake after the dry lake bed it's on. Sometimes you might even see its code, KXTA, pop up on, like, aviation databases, though that's pretty rare.
Okay.
Location-wise, it's deep inside the Nevada Test and Training Range. About 83 miles northwest of Las Vegas. Edwards Air Force Base administers it. The Air Force line is that it's an open training range. But the common belief, and the historical record backs this up, is that its main job is developing and testing experimental aircraft and weapon systems.
Right.
It was actually picked out by the Air Force and the CIA way back in 1955, specifically for the U-2 spy plane tests. And what's really interesting, I think, is how long they kept it quiet. Decades of intense secrecy. Then, bam, June 25th, 2013, the CIA actually publicly acknowledges its existence.
Wow, 2013. That recent.
Yeah, well, the acknowledgement was, it came from a Freedom of Information Act request, a FOIA request from back in 2005. They finally declassified documents about its history, its purpose, didn't spill all the beans, obviously, but just saying, yes, Area 51 exists, and here's some of what we did there. That was huge.
I can imagine. After all that speculation, decades of it, and that secrecy, it really fueled the whole pop culture thing, didn't it? The extraterrestrial highway nearby, all the tourist stuff.
Oh, absolutely. It created its own sort of gravitational pull. People are fascinated.
Even if you can't get anywhere near the actual base.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, the security, the isolation, sounds intense. The original base was, what, 6 by 10 miles? Pretty small relative.
Right, but it's inside this much larger restricted airspace. They call it the Groom Box. That's about 23 by 25 miles, no flying allowed. And it's all connected to the road network inside the Nevada test site, the NTS.
Okay.
There's Groom Lake Road. Used to go to some old mines. Now it's, improved, paved in sections. It goes past a serious security checkpoint through the jumbled hills.
Global Hills. That sounds about right.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it heads out towards Tikaboo Valley.
And it has some interesting neighbors, too, right? Nuclear test sites?
Yeah, Yucca Flat is nearby. That's where they did, hundreds of nuclear tests. Something like 739 out of 928 U.S. tests happened there.
Whoa.
And then southwest, you've got the Yucca Mountain nuclear waste site. So it's in a pretty unique neighborhood. Groom Lake itself, the lake bed, is a salt flat, about 4,400 feet elevation. It's big, maybe 3.75 miles by 3 miles. And it's incredibly flat, just perfect for runways. Nature did the hard work there.
So where did the name Area 51 actually come from? Is that known?
It's still a bit murky, honestly. One theory is it came from an old Atomic Energy Commission grid map. It was next to Area 15, so maybe 51 just followed. Another idea is they picked 51 because the AEC wasn't likely to use that number, keeping it sort of separate. Who knows for sure? It definitely got other nicknames, though. Dreamland? Paradise Ranch? They apparently shortened that to just The Ranch, trying to make it sound appealing, maybe.
Paradise Ranch. For the middle of the Nevada desert. Bit of a stretch.
Hey, yeah, maybe a bit. But that was apparently the idea. The restricted airspace itself, R4808 North, that's the official designation.
And before all the secret planes, it was mining country.
That's right. Lead and silver discovered back in the 1860s. Mines operated off and on until the early 1950s. And interestingly, there was already an airfield there from 1942, Indian Springs Air Force Auxiliary Field. Just 2 basic unpaved runways, but the site had aviation history even then.
So the foundation was there, literally. But the real transformation, the reason we know it today, that was the U-2 program.
Exactly. April 1955, the CIA sets up shop there for Project Aquatone. That was the U-2 development. And secrecy was everything. They couldn't use Edwards, couldn't use Palmdale. Too public, too many eyes.
Right.
Kelly Johnson, the U-2's designer, had this great quote about finding Groom Lake. He said something like, "We flew over it, and within 30 seconds, you knew that was the place."
Just knew it.
Yeah, it was a perfect natural landing field, as smooth as a billiard table without anything being done to it.
Wow.
And that Paradise Ranch name, that was apparently Johnson's idea too. Trying to lure workers out to this incredibly remote secret spot.
A little bit of marketing spin for a top-secret project.
You could say that. The initial setup was pretty basic. One paved runway, a few hangars, control tower, simple housing. But they did think about morale, like you said. Added a movie theater, a volleyball court, little things.
Keep the troops happy.
Keep them working. The first U-2 arrived July 24th, 1955. And the personnel schedule was intense.
Yeah.
Fly in Monday, fly out Friday. Kept everything compartmentalized.
Living double lives, almost.
Pretty much. That level of secrecy was baked in from the absolute start.
Okay, so the U-2 establishes the base. But then things really ramped up, right, with the next generation.
Oh, yeah. Project Oxheart. That started August 1959. This was for the Lockheed A-12, the precursor to the SR-71 Blackbird. This plane was a whole different beast. Needed anti-radar studies, complex aerodynamic tests, advanced engineering.
And the U-2 facilities weren't enough.
Not even close. They were built for maybe 150 people, had that one 5,000-foot runway. The A-12 needed way more. So September 1960, construction kicks off. Project 51, they called it. A massive upgrade. New 10,000-foot runway built diagonally across the lakebed. They even painted this huge spiral on the lakebed called the Hook.
The Hook? What was that for?
It was a visual guide for pilots if they had to abort a landing, help them spiral down safely without, running off into the desert. Unique stuff.
Ingenious.
They added unpaved airstrips for crosswinds, too. And the facilities just exploded. New hangars, workshops, admin buildings, housing for hundreds more people like surplus Navy duplexes.
A whole secret town springing up.
Basically, yeah. Gym, movie theater again, baseball diamond, and fuel tanks. Huge ones. The A-12 drank a special fuel, JP-7, and needed millions of gallons. Security got even tighter. Closed a nearby mine, got the FAA to expand the restricted airspace again, added another 600 square miles.
Wow.
They had support planes, too, F-101s, T-33s, C-130s for cargo, even F-104 starfighters as chase planes. The first A-12 arrived February 62. First flight was April 26th. By then, over 1,000 people were working there. When you connect this to the bigger picture, the sheer scale of this expansion, it just screams Cold War. The push for air superiority, whatever the cost, whatever the secrecy needed.
It's incredible. And it wasn't just piloted planes, right? You mentioned drones earlier.
That's right. Alongside the A-12, they were working on the D-21 drone.
The D-21.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty advanced for the time.
It was incredibly ambitious. An unpiloted drone, basically a flying ramjet. The idea came after Gary Power's U-2 got shot down over Russia in 1960. They wanted something that didn't risk a pilot.
Makes sense.
Kelly Johnson, the designer, wasn't keen at first, but the Air Force funded it. It was called Q-12, then they flipped the numbers to D-21, codename Tagboard. First one was ready spring of '64, shipped to Groom Lake. The plan was to launch it from a modified A-12 called the M-21.
Launch it midair.
Yeah. Blow off the covers, start the ramjet engine, push it off a pylon. Very tricky stuff. And they hit problems. Lots of unexpected aerodynamic issues through 64, 65.
But they kept at it.
They did. Got a successful launch March 5th, 1966. Flew 120 miles. Then another in April 66. That one went 1,200 miles. Mach 3.3, 90,000 feet. Incredible performance.
That's staggering.
But then, disaster. July 30th, 1966. A D-21 failed to start after separation, collided with the M-21 mothership. Both crew ejected, but one drowned.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah. Kelly Johnson just canceled the M-21 launch program right there, said it was too dangerous. But the drone itself wasn't dead yet. They redesigned it as the D-21B, launched from under the wing of a B-52 bomber.
From a B-52, that's quite a shift.
It was. They tested the setup from Groom Lake, but the actual operational launches were over the Pacific. The program finally got canceled for good July 15th, 1971. Reconnaissance was changing. You had the A-12, the SR-71 was coming online, and satellites were getting much better without the political risk of losing an aircraft over hostile territory.
And here's where it gets really interesting, right? The D-21s became these mysterious black airplanes even after they were retired.
Exactly. Nobody really knew they existed until August 1976. They put them in storage out in the open at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. Suddenly, photos started appearing in magazines.
Whoops.
Big whoops. Fueled all sorts of speculation. The full details didn't come out until 1982, and the whole B-52 D-21B program wasn't public knowledge until 1993. Decades of secrecy, undone by putting them in the wrong parking lot, basically.
Incredible story. So Area 51 wasn't just about developing U.S. tech, was it? I've heard stories about foreign planes.
That's another huge part of its history, foreign technology evaluation, testing captured Soviet aircraft during the Cold War. Hugely classified work.
The Red Eagles.
That's the famous one, yeah. Started in the late 60s, went on for decades. It kicked off when an Iraqi pilot, Munir Redfa, defected to Israel with his MiG-21.
Huh?
Israel shared the plane with the U.S., leading to projects like Have Donut, Have Drill. The goal, figure out exactly what Soviet planes could do, pit them against our own fighters, like the F-4 Phantom. Have Donut, for example, used that Iraqi MiG-21. Air Force and Navy pilots flew it at Groom Lake. Because where else could you do that secretly?
Right.
Initial tests, F-4 versus MiG-21, seemed pretty even, but it came down to the pilot. When U.S. pilots flew the MiG, it was a draw, but one Navy pilot, Doc Tansen, figured out how to beat it consistently. Another pilot flew the MiG and found its strength was turning hard in vertical fights near a stall. The F-4 needed to keep its speed up.
So, real tactical insights.
Absolutely vital insights. Conclusion. The MiG-21 was tough, but beatable if F-4 pilots used their speed advantage. Then Have Drill got hold of 2 Syrian MiG-17Fs from Israel, late '68. Those tests showed the MiG-17's weaknesses. Simple controls, no power boost. The F-4 could just power away from it.
And this raises a key question, doesn't it? How did this direct comparison impact actual U.S. pilot training?
Massively. The data from Have Donut and Have Drill went straight to the brand new Top Gun school at Miramar.
Ah, Top Gun.
Yeah, the real one. And look at the results in Vietnam. The Navy's kill ratio against MiGs shot up to over 8-1. The Air Force, which didn't have Top Gun yet, only improved slightly, maybe 2.8-1.
Wow, that's a stark difference.
It really was. Most of the Navy pilots getting MiG kills were Top Gun graduates. It proved the value of really knowing your enemy's aircraft. This work eventually moved to Tonopah Test Range Airport in '73 under Project Have Idea. Area 51 also tested Soviet radar systems under Have GLIB using mock Soviet sites.
So a whole ecosystem of evaluation.
Right. Then in 1979, the CIA handed over control of Area 51 entirely to the Air Force Flight Test Center at Edwards.
And this kind of work, evaluating foreign tech, I'd probably continued, right? There was that tragic crash in 2017.
Yes, Lieutenant Colonel Eric Doc Schultz died in a crash there. The Air Force was very tight-lipped, wouldn't say what aircraft type it was, but unconfirmed reports later, around 2022, linked it to the Foreign Materials Exploitation Program, suggesting it might have been a Russian Su-27 flanker. The speculation was a technical issue led to ejection, and Schultz didn't survive. It highlights the ongoing risks of that kind of classified testing.
Definitely. Okay, moving on from foreign tech, Area 51 is also synonymous with stealth, the F-117.
The birthplace of operational stealth, absolutely. The Lockheed Have Blue prototype, the proof of concept for the F-117 Nighthawk, first flew at Groom Lake in December 1977.
Have Blue, cool name.
Isn't it? The full F-117 development contract came in '78. The first prototype, YF-117A, arrived January '81, first flight June '81. Hal Farley was the pilot.
And they set up a special unit for it?
Yep, the 4450th Tactical Group, based officially at Nellis, but they actually lived and worked out at Area 51. To keep things under wraps, they flew A-7 Corsair Ts as, like, cover aircraft for training and just to look busy.
Clever. So what does this all mean for the F-117's early days? Very hush-hush, obviously.
Extremely. The first Air Force pilot flew it in October '82, Major Alton Whitley Jr. The teams working there had nicknames, too. The F-117 guys were the Baja Scorpions.
Baja Scorpions, love it.
And there was another stealth project testing there around the same time, Tacit Blue. The team working on that called themselves the Whalers. Tacit Blue was wild, looked totally different, all curves, composite materials. It was a tech demonstrator for low observable surveillance aircraft. Never went into production, but its tech heavily influenced the B-2 bomber. First flight was Feb '82.
So multiple secret projects running side by side.
Yes, and moving the F-117s around required incredible secrecy. They only moved them at night inside C-5 cargo planes. Defueled, wings taken off, loaded in darkness. Unloaded in darkness.
A real shadow operate.
Totally. Area 51 did the initial radar signature testing, weapons trials, trained the first combat pilots. Then, starting May '82, they began moving the main F-117 operation to the Tonopah Test Range Airport, which was also very remote, but maybe slightly less sensitive than Groom Lake itself. That move finished in early '83.
But Area 51 still played a role.
Oh, yes. It continued to be used for specific F-117 testing, especially verifying its radar cross-section and other classified activities throughout the Nighthawk's career. It remained a key site.
The layers of secrecy are just astounding. Which brings us to the legal status. How does the government officially handle it?
With minimal information, basically. The area is strictly off-limits. Permanently. No civilian flights, no normal military flights. Security's intense. You need top clearances. No cameras, no weapons allowed for personnel. Military pilots flying nearby risk big trouble if they stray into the restricted box.
And the surveillance.
Constant. Motion sensors buried in the ground, extending even onto public land nearby. And those guards, the camo dudes.
Right, the guys in the white pickups.
Yeah, likely private contractors. AECOM is a name that's been associated with them. And then there's the Janet airline, that fleet of unmarked passenger jets flying workers in and out, mostly from Las Vegas. It's a whole separate, hidden logistics network.
So visible yet invisible.
Exactly. On public maps, like USGS maps, you might just see the old Groom Mine marked. Aviation charts just show the big, restricted area. But satellite imagery, that's different now. High-res commercial satellites, Russian satellites, they show the runways, buildings, everything. The physical secrecy is harder to maintain from space.
So this raises that important question again.
Sure.
When did the government truly acknowledge it? Not just its existence, but activity.
Well, the Air Force sort of vaguely acknowledged the location existed back in 1998. But the big one was that CIA declassification in June 2013. That FOIA response specifically confirmed the U-2 and Oryx-Cart projects happened there, released maps and documents. That was the first time they officially tied specific historical activity to the Area 51 name. Many media outlets reported it as the first ever acknowledgement, but it was more nuanced than that. It was about confirming the purpose, at least historically.
That makes sense. And before that acknowledgement, there was that environmental lawsuit, wasn't there? A real fight for transparency.
There was, back in 1994. 5 unnamed civilian contractors, plus the widows of 2 others, Walter Casa and Robert Frost, sued the Air Force and the EPA.
What were they alleging?
They claimed that hazardous waste, unknown chemicals, were being burned in open pits and trenches at Groom Lake, illegally. They got biochemists involved, found high levels of things like dioxin, dibenzofuran, trichloroethylene, and body fat samples. They linked these exposures to serious health problems, skin, liver, respiratory issues, and claimed they contributed to the deaths of Casa and Frost.
So they wanted compensation, but also information.
Exactly. They argued the Air Force mishandled toxic materials and the EPA wasn't enforcing the law, the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. The government tried to shut it down using the state secrets privilege, said revealing anything would harm national security.
But the judge didn't buy it initially.
No, Judge Philip Pro initially rejected the government's argument about state secrets blocking the whole case.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The president stepped in.
Right. President Bill Clinton, in 1995, he issued a presidential determination specifically exempting the Air Force's operating location near Groom Lake, Nevada, from environmental disclosure laws.
He just signed an order saying the laws don't apply there.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Citing national security. That gave the judge the grounds to dismiss the lawsuit, basically saying without the potentially classified information, the plaintiffs couldn't prove their case. They appealed, arguing the government abused its power to classify things, but the appeals court sided with the government, and the Supreme Court refused to hear the case. End of the road for the lawsuit.
And that presidential exemption is still in place.
Yes, it has to be renewed annually by the sitting president, and it's pretty much the only formal, ongoing government recognition that Groom Lake is something more than just another part of the Nellis Range.
And that leaked memo about F-117 materials.
Yeah, that was weird. 2005, an unclassified memo about handling F-117 materials safely mentioning the same chemicals from the lawsuit popped up on an Air Force website. Journalists noticed, asked questions, and poof, it vanished. Just highlights the ongoing sensitivity.
Definitely a sensitive spot. What about how it appears or doesn't appear on things like aviation charts now?
Well, there was that incident in December 2007. Pilots suddenly noticed the base appearing in Jeppesen navigation databases, listed as Homey Airport with that ICAO code KXTA.
Homey Airport.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Seriously. Seems like it might have been an accidental data release. The Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, AOPA, had to quickly advise student pilots, probably don't use KXTA as a destination in your flight plan.
Yeah, good advice. Don't accidentally file a flight plan for Area 51.
Probably not recommended. And the ground security remains intense. Orange posts marking the boundary, those camo dudes patrolling. The signs are very clear. Use of deadly force is authorized. They are not messing around.
And hidden tech, too. Sensors.
Surveillance cameras, motion detectors, some reportedly even on public land quite far from the actual base perimeter. They want to know who's coming long before they get close. This level of secrecy, it's been challenged before, hasn't it? Even unintentionally.
Right, like that Skylab incident.
Yeah, 1974, astronauts on Skylab took photos of the area. They had specific instructions not to photograph it, but they did anyway, maybe accidentally. Internal memos later revealed the CIA debated what to do. Could they classify photos already taken? The Soviets probably had satellite photos anyway. In the end, the photo ended up in a public government archive. Just shows how hard it is to keep things totally hidden.
Constant battle. And there was that shooting incident more recently.
Yes, January 28th, 2019. A man drove through a security checkpoint near Mercury, Nevada, which is south of Groom Lake, but related to the test site. There's a chase, about 8 miles. He got out of his car holding some kind of cylindrical object, refused orders to stop, and security personnel shot and killed him. Very few details ever released.
Tragic, and again, underscores the high stakes out there.
Yeah.
Okay, we can't talk about Area 51 without diving into the other stuff. The UFOs, the conspiracies, the elephant in the room, or maybe the alien in the hangar.
Yes, right. It's become the absolute focal point for modern UFO lore and government conspiracy theories. That extreme secrecy is like fertilizer for speculation.
So what are the common theories? It's more than just Roswell, right?
Oh yeah, the list is long. Storing and reverse engineering crashed alien ships, like the one supposedly from Roswell. Studying alien bodies, maybe even live aliens. Manufacturing advanced aircraft based on recovered alien technology. Holding meetings or having joint projects with aliens.
Wow, okay.
Keep going. Developing exotic energy weapons, maybe related to SDI, the Star Wars program, weather control technology, time travel, teleportation experiments, developing radical new propulsion systems like the mythical Aurora spy plane, or even that it's a center for activities related to a secret one-world government.
That covers a lot of ground. What about underground bases? That's a big one, too.
Huge one. Theories about massive underground facilities, maybe under Groom Lake itself, or nearby Papoose Lake, the so-called S4 location Bob Lazar talked about. Tales of a transcontinental underground railroad system connecting secret bases. A Cheshire airstrip that appears and disappears. All supposedly built using alien tech.
So what does this all mean for the origins of these tales? Where did they start? Is there any connection to reality?
Well, there's a very real connection for many of the sightings, especially in the 50s and 60s. Remember the U-2 and the A-12?
Flying incredibly high and fast.
Exactly. Way above normal air traffic. 60,000 feet plus. Regular planes were below 20,000. Most military below 40,000. So, airline pilots, especially flying west in the early evening, would see these silver aircraft catching the setting sun at extreme altitudes. They'd look fiery, strange, totally unidentified.
So the secret flights were the UFOs for many people.
For a lot of the reports, yes. Project Blue Book, the Air Force's official UFO investigation, actually cross-referenced sighting reports with U-2 and RX-CART flight logs. They could often explain a sighting internally that way, but they couldn't tell the public, oh, that was just our top-secret spy plane. That would defeat the whole purpose.
So the secrecy itself fueled the mystery it was designed to protect.
Precisely. Veterans from those programs, like the A-12 guys, openly say their planes inadvertently caused tons of UFO reports. That unique shape of the ox cart moving at Mach 3, reflecting the sun. Yeah, you'd think UFO. Some even think the Air Force didn't mind the UFO rumors too much, as it provided good cover for the real experimental work.
A convenient distraction.
Maybe. But those veterans strongly deny the wilder stuff, like vast underground tunnels. They say the reality was complex enough.
And then specific hoaxes or claims pushed the alien narrative harder.
Definitely. The Majestic 12 documents, which surfaced in the late 80s and are widely considered a hoax, really pushed Area 51 into the center of the alien cover-up story. Then came Bob Lazar in 1989. His claims about working at S4 near Papoose Lake on captured alien spacecraft became hugely influential, really cemented Area 51 S4 in the public mind as the alien tech place.
Law's story is still debated constantly online.
Oh, absolutely. Then you had others, like in that 1996 documentary Dreamland, a guy claimed he worked on a flying disc simulator based on alien tech, and even interacted with an alien called J-Rod. And another guy, Dan Burish, claimed in 2004 he worked there cloning alien viruses, also with J-Rod. These stories just kept adding layers to the myth.
And remember that whole Storm Area 51 thing recently?
How could you forget? July 2019, that joke Facebook event, Storm Area 51, they can't stop all of us. The goal, see them aliens.
Millions signed up online.
Over 2 million. The Air Force had to issue a statement basically saying, please don't.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't turn into an actual storming, thankfully, but a couple music festivals popped up nearby alien stock, Storm Area 51 base camp. Maybe 1,500 to 3,000 people showed up in total.
Mostly harmless fun then.
Mostly. About 150 people actually went near the perimeter gates. A few got arrested for trespassing, but it was more a cultural moment than a real attempt to breach security. Just showed how potent the Area 51 legend still is.
It really does. So we've gone from a secret spot on a dry lake bed chosen for spy planes
Through decades of cutting-edge, classified aerospace development.
to becoming this global icon of government secrecy and, well, alien mythology. It's quite a journey.
It really is. You have this core of verifiable, groundbreaking aviation history, the U-2, the A-12 stealth, incredible achievements done under intense secrecy. And that very secrecy became the seed crystal for decades of speculation, rumor, and fascination that often overshadows the known facts. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Area 51 is just the stark reminder, isn't it? That even in our hyper-connected, information-saturated age, official accounts and declassified documents can really struggle to compete with a powerful, enduring myth.
That's a great point. The story people want to believe can be stronger than the story that's documented. So, what does this all mean for you listening right now? When you hear Area 51 next time, what comes to mind first? Is it the image of sleek, black, experimental jets roaring across the desert sky? Or do you still picture something otherworldly hidden away in a hangar? What stands out to you from this deep dive into America's most famous secret base? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive today. Keep exploring and keep questioning.